The scream tore through the crowded night, shattering the laughter that had filled the air only moments earlier. Emma said, "Why would you do this to me, Liam?" Her voice trembled, sharp as glass, cutting through the stunned silence. Liam's eyes darted away, his hands clenched, as if the weight of guilt dragged him down. Emma's chest heaved, her breath broken, her memories flooding against the harsh truth unfolding before her. A week ago they had sworn to stand together against everything, and now betrayal stood like a knife between them. Sarah whispered from the edge, "Please stop. This isn't you two." But the words fell flat against the storm of fury. Daniel, standing nearby, felt his gut twist because he had seen this fracture coming for months, but had stayed silent, afraid of being the messenger of doom. Emma remembered the late nights, the promises whispered, the word, forever, repeated until it felt like truth carved in stone. Yet now, under the buzzing streetlights, that word was ash on her tongue. Liam finally spoke, his voice cold. "You pushed me aside, Emma. I couldn't stand watching you shine without me." The sentence landed like poison, and Emma's tears blurred the world, but her heart caught the betrayal clearly. The night no longer smelled of summer air. It reeked of endings. Emma's mind reeled backward, dragging her into fragments of laughter and sunlight. She remembered chasing Liam through the fields, grass brushing her ankles, Sarah shouting behind them to slow down. Liam had stopped, his chest heaving, and said, "Forever, Em, we'll always be here." The promise had wrapped around her heart like golden thread, tying her to him in ways she had never questioned. Daniel had joined them then, tossing stones into the air, saying with a grin, "And I'll make sure neither of you breaks it." They had all laughed, their bond glowing brighter than the setting sun. Now, standing in the harsh night, Emma's body trembled with the weight of those words. The memory stung sharper now, because Emma realized promises had never been enough. They had whispered secrets under the blanket of night, believing nothing could tear them apart. Liam said, "We'll protect each other no matter what." Emma had whispered back, "I trust you with everything." Daniel had smirked at their seriousness. Sarah had rolled her eyes with fondness. Emma pressed her palm against her chest now, remembering that blind faith, realizing how cruelly it had been shattered. Emma could almost taste the sweetness of past summers, the nights when they had lain on rooftops counting stars. Liam had pointed upward, saying, "Every star is a promise we'll never break." Sarah had giggled, tossing a pebble at him, while Daniel muttered, "Corny but true." Emma's heart had swelled then, certain that nothing in the world could steal what they shared. Now, that certainty was gone, crushed beneath the weight of tonight's revelation. The present rushed back with a sting louder than the past. Emma wiped her cheeks, voice shaking as she said, "You swore forever, Liam." Her words hung in the cold air, heavier than silence. Liam swallowed hard, his jaw tightening, as Sarah lowered her head, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, guilt pressing against his ribs. Emma's heart broke again, each beat a reminder that what once was eternal had turned fragile, ready to shatter completely. Emma's chest ached as her thoughts carried her back to where it all began, when innocence and loyalty were their language. They were just children then, reckless but inseparable. She remembered falling from the swing, knees raw and stinging. Liam had rushed forward, grabbing her hand with wide, worried eyes, and said, "I'll never let you down, Em." Sarah clapped from the side, cheering at his words as though they were vows. Daniel, always the joker, had leaned against the swing pole, grinning. "You two are too dramatic already." But the moment had settled into Emma's heart like sunlight, warm and permanent. That day, friendship had meant family, chosen and unshakable. And yet, now in the wreckage of betrayal, Emma wondered if she had been blind to think such promises could survive forever. Emma's mind swirled with the memory of summers by the lake where time stood still. Liam had been first in, splashing wildly, shouting, "Come on, Em, you're too slow." She had laughed, leaping after him, the water cool and endless. Sarah had perched on the dock, pretending to read but smiling secretly at their joy. Daniel had rowed the small boat lazily, smirking. "You two could drown and still argue who swims better." That day, their promise had been carved into the ripples themselves, to always return no matter where life pulled them. It had felt eternal, the lake their sanctuary. Now, in the shadow of betrayal, Emma realized even the deepest waters could dry, leaving cracks where laughter once echoed. Autumn carried the taste of heartbreak, and Emma remembered it vividly. She had cried beneath the maple tree, Sarah's lap warm against her cheek. Liam had appeared, fumbling awkwardly with a chocolate bar, muttering, "Don't cry, Em, you're stronger than this." Daniel had snorted, tossing acorns at him, grinning. "She doesn't need candy, idiot, she needs us." The laughter had cut through the tears, golden leaves falling like confetti of comfort. That day, Emma learned that no sorrow was too heavy if her friends stayed close. She clung to that truth like breath itself. Yet, standing now in betrayal's shadow, she realized some wounds were too deep, too poisoned for laughter to ever heal again. Winter had belonged to rooftops and secrets stitched into stars. Emma remembered shivering under the blanket, her breath clouding the air. Liam had leaned close, whispering, "No matter who comes or goes, we'll always be us." She had pressed her forehead to his shoulder, murmuring back, "Always." Sarah had laughed softly, pulling the blanket tighter, her golden hair catching frostlight. Daniel had grumbled, teeth chattering, "If I freeze, it's your fault." Their promises had drifted upward with their breath, etched into constellations. Emma had believed then that forever was sky deep and unbreakable. But now, betrayed under harsh neon instead of stars, she understood even the brightest constellations burned out. The memories dissolved, leaving Emma trembling in the present, her voice rough with grief. She stared at Liam and said, "We built forever together, and you set it on fire." The words carried the weight of every vow, every childhood echo. Liam shifted uneasily, shame flickering across his eyes, before defiance took root. Sarah pressed her hand over her mouth, guilt flooding her features. Daniel's fists tightened, veins pulsing as he wrestled with silence. What had once been sanctuary now stood like ruins at midnight. Emma knew in that moment that the war for her trust had just begun, and no memory, however sweet, could shield her from the devastation ahead. The air between them grew heavier with every passing day, though Emma tried to ignore the cracks. Liam had stopped answering her late-night calls, his excuses thin as paper. Sarah had started lingering too long near him, her eyes carrying secrets Emma couldn't name. Daniel noticed it all, but his silence weighed like lead because he feared the truth more than the lies. Emma confronted Liam once, her voice soft. "Are you pulling away from me?" He had laughed too quickly, replying, "You're imagining things, Em." But his eyes flickered elsewhere, betraying what his mouth tried to hide. The bond that had once felt indestructible now felt fragile, stretched taut over whispers and shadows. Emma began noticing the smallest shifts. Liam's laughter at Sarah's jokes louder than hers, his texts delayed or missing altogether. At first, she told herself it was nothing, but doubt grew like weeds in her chest. She replayed their childhood promises, desperate to believe they still mattered. One night, Sarah said lightly, "Liam's been busy lately. Don't worry about it." The reassurance rang false, hollow, and Emma's stomach twisted. Daniel muttered, "Some things don't add up," before quickly looking away, afraid his words would set the truth ablaze. Emma's heart screamed that something precious was slipping through her fingers, and she could not stop it. The silence between Emma and Liam began to scream louder than any argument. He cancelled plans, his excuses vague, his smile brittle. Emma whispered to herself, maybe he just needs space, but deep inside she knew something darker lurked. Sarah grew bolder, brushing against Liam when she passed, laughter spilling too easily from her lips. Daniel caught Emma's eyes once, his look heavy with warning, but he said nothing. Emma's trust fought to survive, but each unanswered message, each lingering glance between Liam and Sarah, cut deeper. The promise of forever now sounded like a cruel echo in her ears. Emma finally snapped one evening, her voice sharp. "Why are you shutting me out, Liam?" He froze, anger flashing in his eyes before quickly smothering it. "You're overthinking everything," he muttered, turning away. Sarah stepped closer, touching his arm as if to soothe him, and Emma's stomach dropped. Daniel shifted uneasily, fists clenched at his sides, torn between shouting the truth and holding his tongue. The room filled with unsaid words, each heavier than the last. Emma's heart pounded, screaming that betrayal was near, even if she couldn't yet see it fully. Trust unraveled thread by thread, until Emma could barely breathe under the weight of doubt. She walked home alone one night, hearing Liam's laughter echoing behind her, not for her but for Sarah. Every footstep felt like betrayal pressing closer. She whispered to herself, "It can't be true," though her heart already knew. Daniel's voice replayed in her mind, his earlier warning unspoken but clear. Something was breaking. And Emma, once so certain of forever, felt the first sharp sting of knowing she was about to lose everything she had built with him. Emma's world cracked when she opened the cafe door and froze at what she saw. Liam leaned close to Sarah, their hands brushing across the table as if secrets belonged to them now. Sarah laughed softly, her smile carrying a tenderness Emma once believed was hers. Liam whispered, "You make me feel alive," and Emma's stomach twisted violently. For years she had been his anchor, his forever. Yet here he was trading vows of comfort with the one person Emma trusted most. Daniel entered behind her, his sharp intake of breath echoing her pain, but he said nothing. Emma's throat burned as she turned away, but the betrayal had already carved itself into her bones. Emma stumbled into the night, breath ragged, as the weight of truth suffocated her. Every laugh, every whisper, every silence suddenly made sense. Liam caught up, calling, "Emma, wait! It's not what you think." She spun around, her voice breaking. "Then tell me what it is." His silence answered louder than any lie could. Sarah emerged, guilt flooding her face, whispering, "We never meant for this to happen." Emma's chest collapsed inward, the world tilting until even the street beneath her feet felt like it was betraying her. Daniel hovered nearby, fists clenched, but still he kept quiet, his silence sharper than a blade. The confession finally slipped from Liam's lips, fragile but poisonous. He said, "I couldn't watch you outgrow me, Emma. Sarah was there when you weren't." Emma gasped as though struck, the words slicing deeper than any blade. Sarah cried, "It wasn't planned, I needed someone to." The air thickened, the betrayal standing naked between them. Emma staggered back, whispering, "You were my family." Daniel finally spoke, his voice hoarse, "You broke something that can't be fixed." Silence followed, heavier than shouting, and Emma realized forever had died right there on the street. Emma's memories collided with reality, flashing images of every promise Liam had whispered against every word he had just confessed. She screamed, "You said forever." Her voice cracked, echoing down the empty street. Liam flinched, muttering, "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." Sarah stepped forward, tears streaming, whispering, "Please, Emma, don't hate me." Emma's chest heaved, rage and heartbreak twisting into something she couldn't name. Daniel shook his head, muttering, "You've destroyed everything." The night closed in, wrapping them all in suffocating silence that no apology could ever pierce. The twist of betrayal sank deeper as Emma's strength finally cracked. Her voice dropped to a whisper, colder than any scream. "You didn't just betray me. You betrayed every version of us we could have been." Liam's face twisted, half regret, half defiance. Sarah sobbed openly, hands shaking as if she could hold on to something already broken. Daniel's eyes burned with unspoken judgment, his silence condemning them more than words ever could. Emma turned away, her heart bleeding in every step, leaving behind the ruins of forever scattered on the wet pavement. Emma's voice thundered through the night, shattering the fragile silence. She screamed, "You don't get to break me, and then pretend it's love." Her fists trembled, her body shaking with rage that had nowhere to go. Liam shouted back, "You never saw me, Emma. You only saw what you wanted me to be." His words struck harder than fists, each one a blade slicing the last thread between them. Sarah sobbed, hands raised as though she could shield them from each other's fury. Daniel stepped forward at last, roaring, "Enough!" But even his voice couldn't cage the storm. The friendship that once was sanctuary erupted into chaos, forever scarred by betrayal and fury. Emma's tears mixed with fury as she spat. I gave you everything, Liam. Every secret, every promise, every piece of me. Liam's jaw tightened, his voice bitter. And I gave you my shadow while you ran ahead into the light. Sarah cried. Stop, please, you're tearing each other apart. Daniel's fists shook as he growled. He already tore it apart, Sarah. Emma's chest heaved, grief and rage colliding until her voice cracked. I hate that I still love the friend you used to be. The words fell like shattered glass, cutting all of them at once. Emma lunged forward, jabbing a finger into Liam's chest, shouting, You wanted to dim my light because you were drowning in your own shadows. Liam shoved her hand aside, his voice sharp. I was suffocating, Emma, and you never noticed. Sarah gasped, pulling at Liam's sleeve, whispering, Don't do this. Daniel barked, It's too late. He's already chosen. The air was thick with rage, heartbreak and finality, the storm too powerful to calm. Emma's heart shattered as she realized the boy who once held her hand through scraped knees was gone, replaced by someone who had chosen betrayal over love. Emma's scream broke into sobs as she whispered, You promised me forever, Liam. And forever is bleeding out right here. Liam closed his eyes, voice shaking between rage and regret. I never wanted to lose you, but I couldn't live in your shadow. Sarah collapsed to her knees, sobbing. I never wanted to be the reason this ended. Daniel glared at both of them, spitting. You didn't just betray Emma. You betrayed all of us. The street pulsed with thunder and silence, their words colliding like lightning strikes, burning away what little hope remained. Emma steadied herself, her voice low but sharper than any scream. I will never forgive you, Liam. Not for what you did, not for who you've become. Liam's eyes burned with unshed tears, but he didn't answer. Sarah whispered brokenly, Emma, please, her voice cracking into nothing. Daniel stepped closer to Emma, his voice firm. You don't owe them your pain anymore. The storm within Emma quieted into something colder, harder. The friendship had died, and in its place stood only ashes and scars. She turned away, her final words echoing like thunder, Forever is dead. The storm ended, but the silence left behind was heavier than thunder. Emma walked alone, her body soaked, her steps hollow against the pavement. She whispered to herself, Forever died tonight. Her heart throbbed with grief, but beneath the sorrow, something colder stirred, strength born from ruin. Liam sat slumped on the curb, watching her vanish into the distance, shame clawing at his chest. Sarah wept uncontrollably, her cries muffled by the rain. Daniel followed Emma at a distance, not to guide her but to make sure she wasn't alone in her breaking. The battlefield of friendship lay in ruins, and none of them would ever stand the same again. Days passed, but Emma's heart refused to heal. She sat in her bedroom staring at old photographs, sunlit smiles, promises frozen in time. She whispered, We were supposed to last forever. The walls echoed her loneliness. Liam's voice haunted her like a ghost, every word of betrayal replaying until sleep became impossible. Sarah's face filled her mind too, not just as a friend but as the knife that had cut her deepest. Daniel knocked gently on her door once, saying, You don't have to carry this alone. She didn't answer, because even with his kindness she felt stripped bare, her sanctuary destroyed. Liam sat alone in his apartment, the silence unbearable. Empty bottles lined the counter, but none could drown the weight of what he had done. He muttered to himself, I lost her. I lost everything. Sarah sat curled in the corner, mascara streaking her cheeks, whispering, We destroyed her, Liam. We destroyed us. He turned toward her, his voice bitter. You wanted this too. She sobbed harder because even his blame couldn't silence the truth. They had both chosen to shatter Emma's trust. The apartment, once a refuge, felt like a prison built from their betrayal. Emma walked through the park where they had once played as children, the laughter of strangers stabbing her with memories. She touched the swing set, whispering, We swore forever here. The chains rattled in the breeze, mocking her faith. Daniel approached quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. He said softly, "You're stronger than what they took from you." Emma's tears fell, but this time they didn't drown her. They freed her. She realized Liam and Sarah had broken her, yes, but they had also given her the fire to rise. The girl who believed in forever was gone, but the woman who survived betrayal stood in her place. Night returned, and Emma stood on her rooftop staring at the stars. Once, those constellations held promises whispered with love, but now they glittered with cruel honesty. Forever was an illusion. She whispered, "You can't kill me with betrayal. You only taught me how to live without you." The city hummed below, alive with 1,000 stories, reminding her that hers wasn't over. Daniel's voice lingered in her memory, grounding her with truth. Liam and Sarah were gone from her life, but the scars they left had become her armor. She no longer ached for forever. She had found something sharper: freedom. Emma sat in her quiet apartment, the hum of the city faint beyond the glass. She traced the edges of an old photograph with trembling fingers, the four of them smiling in a world untouched by betrayal. "We were unstoppable once," she whispered, her voice low but unshaken. Her chest rose and fell with steady breaths, the sobs gone, replaced by a hollow strength. The picture mocked her with its brightness, yet she refused to turn it face down. Liam's laughter echoed in her mind, once her comfort, now her torment. Sarah's touch lingered in memory like fire, impossible to forget. Daniel's silence haunted her too, though she now knew he had carried the truth long before she dared face it. She placed the photo back on the desk, whispering, "Forever was a dream we held too tightly, and dreams always wait." Across the city, Liam sat on the old bench in the deserted park, rain still clinging to the wood. He stared at his trembling hands, whispering, "I lost her, and I lost the only version of me that mattered." He struck a match for a cigarette, but the wind killed the flame. His chest tightened with the weight of unspoken regrets. Sarah arrived quietly, sitting beside him, her voice raw from tears. "We destroyed everything, Liam. Everything." He didn't look at her. Her presence only deepened the rot inside. "You wanted this too," he muttered bitterly, though his eyes revealed a man already consumed by guilt. They sat in silence, two betrayers shackled to their choices, their forever nothing more than ash scattered in the night. Daniel met Emma on the bridge that overlooked the city's glowing veins of light. She leaned against the railing, her face calm yet etched with scars no one else could see. He stood beside her, voice low but firm. "They don't deserve your tears anymore." Emma's lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. "I know," she said, "but forgetting isn't the same as forgiving." Her gaze followed the streets below, each light a reminder of lives still being lived, futures still waiting. Daniel's hand rested on her shoulder, steadying her. She whispered, "They took pieces of me, but they couldn't take all of me." And for the first time since the betrayal, she felt her own strength return, not as fire but as steel. Later that night, Emma returned to her rooftop, the same place where promises once bloomed beneath the stars. She tilted her head back, staring at the constellations that had carried whispers of forever. The words now felt like shards of glass in her chest. She whispered into the wind, "You didn't just betray me, you betrayed the US we could have been." The stars glittered above, eternal but indifferent, their silence colder than any scream. She closed her eyes, exhaling deeply, each breath a release of years of trust and years of grief. For the first time, she felt light, not because the pain had gone, but because she carried it differently. The rooftop was no longer a place of promises. It was a place of rebirth. The final truth settled into Emma's bones like unshakable steel. She whispered, her voice sharp but steady, "Forever didn't end tonight. It ended the moment jealousy wore the smile of a friend." The words echoed in the still air, cutting deeper than any scream. She turned, her steps slow but unwavering, leaving the rooftop behind. Liam and Sarah were ghosts now, forever tied to the ashes of her trust. Daniel's voice remained in her memory, grounding her with truth. But even he could not carry her story. It belonged only to her. Emma knew scars would follow, but they would not define her. The audience could feel it. The last blow was not her destruction, but her survival. sharpened into a weapon of resilience.